My guest today is Lindsay Dunton Johnson. Now, I met Lindsay right after she graduated from Auburn and Montgomery, if I remember correctly, and was looking for a job in special education. And I hired her because my special education director, Peggy White, and I thought she was one of the most enthusiastic candidates we had ever seen. And we were pretty confident that she would fit right in with the personality traits we were looking for in teachers. And we were right. And thanks for being here, Lindsay. And how many years have you been teaching now?
So I just entered my 19th year of teaching. So
That's
you
hard to
hired me
believe.
19 years ago. I
See,
know.
you're you're still supposed to be 23 or 24, I think.
I know you hired me right at 23, gave me my first job, and I couldn't be more thankful for
Right.
you.
So tell me about your early educational journey and where you started elementary school and go from there.
Okay, so I started elementary school in Huntsville, Alabama. We were living there. And my dad's job
Redstone.
made us sir.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Redstone Arsenal.
Oh, yes, that's correct. And so we lived there for several years, and then we moved to Tupelo, Mississippi, or birthplace of Elvis Presley.
That's right.
Um, yeah, we stayed there a few years, and then we moved to Hoover, Alabama. And I stayed there until my ninth grade year, until I eventually got to Columbus High School, where I started my 10th grade year and graduated from there. Um, and from there, I got a basketball scholarship to Auburn University at Montgomery, and I played there all 4 years. And then I actually got my undergrad in childhood education, and then I got my specials from Columbus State in special ed, and then I got my master's from Columbus State in special ed, and my specialist from in special ed from West Alabama. So that's sort of like my journey of my education.
Are you still playing basketball for fun?
I play a little bit with my kids, but I fall down too much and just can't move like I used to.
Do they laugh at you when you play?
Yes, I can
Yeah.
still shoot it a little bit, but they're much faster than me now.
I can understand. So, who along the way encouraged you to go into teaching?
So I knew I wanted to teach from very young. Like I was very fortunate to sort of know what I wanted to do by like age 6 or 7. My dad's sister is special educate or she has an intellectual disability, so she was in Special Olympics. All of my childhood, I remember going to watching her, compete when I would come to Georgia for the summer to see my grandparents. And so I sort of fell in love at a very early age with this population of individuals. Um, and I would think that probably the most important person as far as teaching goes would be in my 10th and 12th grade year at Columbus High School. I had a teacher, her name's Carol Wingard.
I
And
know Carol.
yeah, she's amazing, and she just pushed me, and, um, even when there was things that I was not always perfect, and she knew that, and she gave me grace and just helped, lead this way, and so she was very important when it came to that part of my life.
Excellent. What year did you graduate from Columbus High?
2001.
Okay. See, that just seems like yesterday, but
It does. It does seem like yesterday.
well, the people born in 2001 are what, 23 now?
Yeah, 23
So,
years old, and I was graduating high school, so they're done with high school and college now. The
yeah.
whole cycle of them.
So, after all these years, would you choose special education again?
Oh, 1000%. It's still my passion. I still love going to work every day to work with these students. And I definitely, like, you hired me into a position of co-teaching and working, alongside general education teachers and doing some resource. But when I left Shaw and went to Northside, and I was able to start that moderately intellectually disabled program over there, it really was just like the my dream job, to work with students with intellectual disabilities instead of students, students with specific learning disabilities. Um, and integrating them so much in the general education classroom is great. But I sort of like the ID part of the population of special needs and the working on the transition skills. So when I was at Northside, we went to work 4 or 5 days a week in the morning. The bus would pick us up about 9, and we would go work at different places. We went and worked at a vet's office and the Humane Society, and worked at a hotel, and just giving these students different ways to look and try to find jobs that they would be interested in and be good in, once they leave high school. Because to me, that was the most important part. Is I truly do believe that every person can provide something to society, um, and do something for themselves if they're physically able to. And so I just loved that the job that I was able to do there. Um, and I'm still so close with so many of those kids, and so many of them have jobs and are, working, or they know how to use the public transit system. And a couple of them, I worked with them on, passing their driver's test, and they have driver's license now. And so I think that they're judged and they're stereotyped in the wrong way, that they're not able to do stuff, and they just need someone, to advocate for them and help their parents advocate and teach them. Because along this journey I've realized, like, parents don't know they don't know different courses and ways that you can go to help your child. And so I love to help the parents, not so much educate them, but just give them the resources they need to advocate for their children.
Yeah, you're right. For somebody not familiar with special education at all and how it's supposed to work, parents need a guide too, don't they?
They do.
Did you ever consider, like back in high school or college, another job or another path?
Well, I love special needs my whole life, and I had a professor, in college when I was, trying to figure out which way to go between childhood and special ed. She told me, like, look, if you get an undergrad in childhood, it'll give you a good base of, as far as like the academics that these students would learn. Because so many of them, that especially with ID, are on, kindergarten, first, second grade reading levels, even though they're 10th and 11th grade high school. So I think that set like a good base and foundation for me. And she said, you will get hired in special ed because there's so many at any grade level, K through 12, because they're so needed. So I was glad that this professor told me that. So I went into childhood education for my undergrad, but I was still so pulled to the special needs population, even in my childhood education. And then, as we mentioned earlier, you hired me as a special education teacher in high school, but it was still good even at that, because a lot of these children with specific learning disabilities, they're on much lower reading levels than what the grade level they're in. And so I learned a bunch of different strategies to help with reading and math as far as that aspect of it goes.
Now, you just moved back to Columbus from where?
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Okay. All right. That used to be the armor school, but now that's here, isn't
Yeah, they moved it. Yes, sir. They moved it down
it?
here.
And your husband just retired from the military, and make sure to tell him thank you for his service.
Yes, sir. I definitely will.
Now, how many students do you teach each day currently?
So right now, I only have 6 students. I'm in a self-contained classroom. I have 6 level 3 autistic students, all boys. I have 2 aides in the room with me. So it's very different from like the high school setting I had, and it's been a growing year because I haven't ever had a classroom specifically of just of one disability of autism, but I've learned a lot. And of course, my greatest asset in teaching sometimes like hurts me because I become so much. I love these kids so much, and especially now that I'm in the teaching and with the Department of Defense, these kids you get so close to them and then they PCS and leave. So it's tough because I become so close to them and their parents, and then the Army, that's the life, and they end up having to move. So
Yeah,
it's gone great, and I love them, and I work really well with my aides, and they work hard, and the parents I think are happy with their students and what we're doing with them. And at the end of the day, I'll tell anybody, any principal, any administrator, any superintendent, I want them to leave my classroom feeling loved and their parents know they're safe every day. So if we can achieve that, they're happy to come to school, they leave feeling loved, and their parents know they're safe, then I think that we're doing what we need to be doing with these students.
that's great. I remember right after your interview, Peggy White told me that she thought you were going to do great things, but the only concern she has is if you might try to adopt every student that comes into your room.
Yes, it's still that way.
Yeah. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That that must be hard to separate school from home.
It is. And especially now, it's the expect having younger kids. I have a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And so eh, I look at what my students are able to do or my children compared to like my students, or students with any intellectual disability. And that's what I try to teach my kids. And I try to teach even the students at Northside that like especially my volleyball players that worked, they came and helped a lot with my classroom is, we don't need to take anything for granted, and to always be kind and find something in everyone that they can do. And I think, and I loved that the partnership I had with my classroom and my volleyball team at Northside, because so many of my players, I say my kids because they were like my kids, they've gone on to become special education teachers now. And I always said, they did such great things for the students in my classroom, but I think that it impacted them, as far as my volleyball players go, more than it, my kids love them. My special education kids love them, but I think it impacted them way more. And I see that even now in my own children. They just are so compassionate and kind-hearted to students with special needs, and they don't ever stare. Like they'll just go up and talk to them. They may ask questions, but I think that too is, somebody say, "Mom, why are they in a wheelchair?" And it's like, stop looking at them, don't ask questions. But why not ask? Go talk to them and ask and see, what's going on, and find a way to be friends. I think that so many parents they shy away from letting their children go be friendly because they don't want to seem like they're staring. But I think we have to teach children from a young age
I think
how
you're
to
right. And
interact with them.
probably the last thing that any kid in special education wants is to be ignored or not talked to.
Right.
And
And
teaching kids how to do that is I just think that's good parenting.
yeah, I mean, and they need to be taught it. It's not, it's not something that they can really learn without being put in situations. So, there are days that my job is hard, and there are days that I get home and I'm just exhausted. But, you know, I'm, I just, I always have to, you just have to separate it. And early when I was in my teaching career, I would bring work home, and I've just gotten to where I can't do that. Like whatever doesn't get done. Now I may go in earlier in the morning to get stuff done, but I'm not ever going to stay late. Um,
Well, you really
because I
can't afford to with three young children.
know, and they're all involved in sports and dance and activities. And, I spend all my day with these at my school, and with coworkers and other students. So when that bell rings for us to be able to leave, I'll leave. And then, like I said, if I need to go in a little early in the mornings, I will. But I've learned as my career's gone on too, if I don't talk so much and use my planning period to get my work done, then then, then you can get a lot done. In my earlier days, I would spend my whole planning period talking and then be up there all night trying to trying to get stuff done. But I've grown as the years have gone on.
Well, it used to be, I think, what I saw was that there was more special education paperwork than any other three subjects I could name. Is that still the case?
Yes, there's a lot of paperwork and um, it's just so much legality of it and making sure that everything is in place and all the services are being met and all the accommodations and modifications and um so yes, so there is still a lot of paperwork, um and I don't think that is ever going to change.
No, I was talking to somebody a few months ago. They were talking about all the IEP stuff now is done online. And,
Hmm.
for a lot of people, I guess that might seem to be an advantage. But for people like me, I'm not sure it would be.
Yeah, I mean, there a lot of good things is that you don't have to handwrite it out, and you can go through and click a lot of it, so it populates forward. But it's still, making sure meeting dates are met and triennial review dates are met, and there's just a lot of dates and the legal aspect of special education. It's a lot, and it can become stressful at times. Just that part of it, I look at it like I only have 6 kids, but there is still a lot as far as that paperwork and legality of it goes, making sure everything's taken care of.
Well, you've mentioned legality, and a lot of people might not be aware of the fact that an IEP is a legal document in itself. And if teachers don't follow what's written in the IEP, they can legally be held responsible for that. And it's not a small violation.
No, it's not. And it will get you, I feel like as I've been, thank goodness, I've never been in court at all. I have pretty much tried to, not even pretty much, I do take care of that aspect of my teaching. But special education, I feel like, is the quickest way to get a school in court if you don't do what you're supposed to with it.
You're exactly right. Uh, Excuse me, my dog is trying to get my attention down here. As you
Oh,
hop down, we'll eat in a minute. she, she thinks
hungry.
it's close to supper time, and she has to remind me what time it is. uh, Now, what do your children, your personal children, tell you they want to be when they grow up?
So Maddox, my 8-year-old, he has dreams of being a professional football player.
Of course.
Yes, he loves football. My middle child, she's my sweetest. She wants to be a teacher. She says she wants to be a teacher. She hasn't said special education yet, but she does say she wants to be a teacher. And my 4-year-old is still in the world of she wants to be a Disney princess when she grows
I,
up.
I
So
don't blame her. I would too.
I'm not knocking their dreams at this point. So
Can she sing all
I
the
will
words
let.
to Let It Go?
Oh yes, she can. Can, and she's a trip. She's a little redhead, and she's spitfire, just all out all the time.
That's great.
Yeah, they're doing really good though. I'm very proud of them.
So what are you going to be when you grow up?
Well, Doc, I don't know. I really have this vision of one day, and it would take the financial means. I don't know that I will ever have. I would eventually love to one day run or be able to run I don't even want to say a facility, like a community for people who have intellectual disabilities, adults to live.
You mean
Um,
sort of like the Easter seals thing?
Yeah, sort of like the Easter seals, but one of my former students, and I'm still very close with so many of my students, but he lives out in Texas, and I've been to his. It's called Daymark. If anybody wants to look it up, it's amazing. And we actually had one in Lexington, Kentucky, that we knew someone who lived there. Um, they're more private facilities, so the families pay for them. But the one I'm discussing right now, one of my previous students, he has Down syndrome. He's 22. He lives there. And so he lives in like a cottage. They're very nice. It's like a common area and a common kitchen. And then him and another boy with Down syndrome, who's about his same age, they both live there, and they each live they have their own bedroom, and they each have their own bathroom, and they like share a washer and dryer. But they have classes they go to every day. They have a community pool. They have, a gym that they are able to go work out at, and they take different classes. Like they have cooking classes, and I mean they may have like a book class where they're like reading a book and discussing it. They have food, of course, food that is served there for every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they do. They have they call them their coaches. So there's a bunch of people that work here that are their coaches. And then they also have like a van that takes them to work, and they provide like job training coaches to try to help. But I feel like that is what so many people who have children with intellectual disabilities, they just it's a fear. I talk to their parents so much, like what's going to happen when I'm gone, or what are we going to do to let them live a more independent life instead of just living at home with us. So I would love to one day do that. But like I said, the financial aspect and of it, I don't know that I will ever get. But after I finish teaching, I would love to do something like that.
Now, how many people are in say in the home you're talking about, like the one in Texas?
So I bet you it'd probably either be a guess or a lot that I'm telling you, but I would assume there's probably between 40 and 60
Okay,
people that live there.
so it's almost like a
Like you
community.
walk in a front Oh yes, it's like a community. And you walk in the front door, and you have to know them, and like we took him for the weekend. Me and my little boy went out there and took him for the weekend with us, and but his parents had like given him permission. Of course, there's a nurse there to help with medicines, um, but the coaches are really sort of what makes the place, and you have to hire people who understand special needs, because even though they're adults, like you have, 20-year-old to 75-year-olds there living, and the mental capacity of them, some of them are probably in the mental range of like, 4, 5, 6 years old, but in a 70-year-old body. So
Yeah.
they have, you have to is and teaching them social skills and stuff like that, still as in teaching them how to interact with each other, and just going there and observing. I was just so blown away, and it, just that their parents can leave and go on vacation and not have to worry about, are they taken care of, are they okay, because they're in a safe place.
So it's almost like continuing education and a safe place to live.
Yeah, I would say it's like sort of like an assisted living for students with intellect, or for people with intellectual disabilities.
That's a great idea. I hope you can find somebody who's richer than me that can come up with the money for that.
Yeah, we would need a lot of money and land and all kinds of stuff, but maybe this will reach out to somebody who can
And a good
give us
legal team
millions.
too.
Right, a good legal team.
Well, have you seen in Fort Knox or on your return here a particular shortage of teachers in your schools?
Yes, and very much special education teachers. Like I know Muskogee County has a lot listed. I know of vacancies within where I was at Fort Knox and here, um, of just a lot of, special education. And it's sad, because these students need really good teachers as well.
And oftentimes what they're getting is a substitute,
Right.
even if it's a
They
long-term
are. And
sub.
right. I think that, I love the idea of like no child left behind, but I think it is hard with these students. I've learned as I've been doing this for so long is sometimes we have to meet them where they are instead of pushing them into an environment, um, in a school environment, which would be classrooms that they don't belong in. And when you're putting these students in these classrooms where they don't understand what's being taught, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to start having behavior issues. And I think it's just like a downward spiral. And I wish that our education system as a whole, not so much with intellectual disabilities, but more of students, that not everyone needs to worry about going to college. And there's stuff that these students are able to do that they don't need a 3.0 GPA or higher to get done, and they don't need all the testing. And I think there needs to be more vocational schools for students like this to set them up for success and quit worrying so much about test scores and testing because like I said, I think we're not meeting a lot of the students where they need to be met. And I think that's when you are in turn having lots of behavior problems.
So you're advocating for common sense when it comes to
Yes.
special education students.
Yes. 1000%.
There seems to be a lack of that in many places, I think. And I think one of the stupidest thing that education did several years ago was to insist that every child needs to go to college. No, they don't.
They don't.
Period.
They don't. And it's frustrating, as an educator, just hearing peers talk about the students that they're still trying to put in the gen ed setting. And, it's not fair to the student at all. Find something that they can do and start working on job training skills. So when they get out of high school, they can go into society and be productive.
Right. I think that's an excellent idea. You know, I might not be able to fund your community, but maybe I can contribute to it if you get it
Oh, that would be
started.
great.
As
I
long
think I
as
have
you're in
several years of teaching
charge.
ready for that.
As long as you're in charge. Yeah. Are you still a Georgia Bulldog fan?
Oh, yes. We were at the game this weekend when they lost. It was awful.
You were in Oxford?
We were in Oxford.
Really? Now see,
Yeah, me and my husband took my little boy.
that's great. That's one of my favorite places in the world. I know it's probably not yours at this point, but that
Well,
was where I
we
got
had a good
my
time.
undergraduate degree.
You know, I when you messaged me, I thought that. I said, when you messaged me about doing this, I said, I think that he was somehow related to something in Ole Miss.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
it was a good time. One of our good friends from Kentucky, they graduated from Ole Miss. He was an attorney in the army, and so he retired too. So they met us over there. So at least I got to see friends after that butt whooping we took.
well, I I wasn't there, but I enjoyed every minute of it. I'll tell you that.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Yeah. Did you get to go through the Grove?
We did. We tailgated in the Grove, and I had never
Oh,
been there.
good.
It was fun. We had a good time. So we went there, and it rained for the entire 5 hours we were outside, but we
Yeah,
had a good time. It was a fun, good experience. The Ole Miss fans were nice to us, and we really
good.
enjoyed it.
Well, it's they're not that way to everybody. Let me be the first to tell you.
We had a great time.
Well, good. I'm glad you got to see the campus and the stadium, if nothing else. And
Yes, sir. It was pretty.
it's a great town that I've got a lot of fond memories of it. I wish I'd studied harder sometimes, but you remember how it goes.
Yeah, I think you turned out all right, Doc.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, tell me what advice you would give to students that tell you they think they want to be a special ed teacher.
I would tell them, it's probably not the best advice, but I would tell them, we talk a lot about, you know, doing things and using common sense. So I would tell them to do whatever district you're working for, whatever they want to implement it. But at the end of the day, make sure that you know that what you're doing for your students is what's best, and you'll know in your heart. Working with these students with intellectual disabilities and any kind of special education, there's certain aspects that every institute that you work with wants you to implement, and programs they want you to use to assess. And so yes, like do that, and to make who you're working for happy. But there's still a lot more that comes into teaching students with special educate or special needs than that stuff. And I would say pour your heart and soul into what you know is right for them, and what you need to learn,
Well,
what they need to learn.
and most special ed kids are very quick to pick up on that too. Whether you're interested in them and whether you actually like them and are concerned about them, they're experts at that, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And even my students who are nonverbal, like, I just feel like I don't know, it's very, I don't even know the word, but it's like I can feel that how much they love me, and I think they feel how much I love them without words being, language being spoken from either side. And so I think that if you're going to get into special education, I think by no means can do it for the money. You have to 1,000% do it for love of people who at times just are not as fortunate as we are.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, and I think that's great advice. And Lindsay, I appreciate you being here with me today, and it's been great to see you and talk to you again.
Yes, sir. You too. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed speaking with you.
And we'll have to do lunch sometime. If you get a little time off, we still have our retired teachers luncheon. And
Yeah,
while
yeah, I see
you're
that on social
retired, you
media.
can
Yes, sir. Maybe Christmas break. Yeah,
take a
that would be
personal day.
great.
I'll buy you lunch.
Yes, sir. For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you,
Good to
Dr.
see
Ron. I
you,
appreciate
Lindsay.
everything you've done for me as well.
Oh, my
Yes, sir. You
pleasure.
too. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Bye.